The community was stunned to discover that a missing man had been secretly robbing homes for 27 years. This man, who claimed he had lived in complete seclusion for nearly 3 decades, emerged from the forests near Rome, Maine, in April 2013. He insisted that his only contact with another person was a brief encounter with a hiker back in the 1990s. However, this was a ruse, as both the townsfolk and the authorities would soon find out. His tale is nothing short of extraordinary. The hermit revealed that despite Maine's harsh winters, he managed to survive with minimal harm. His strategy included pacing around his camp and keeping a fire burning during the frigid nights. The police officers who interviewed him remarked on his knowledge and eloquence. To endure the long periods of isolation, he spent much of his time reading and meditating. He shared that he drew significant inspiration from the romantics and transcendentalists of the past, particularly admiring Ralph Waldo Emerson, who explored the bond between the soul and nature and the importance of valuing the environment. It's intricate. The recluse remarked, "I can't exclude the concept that solitude bestows a boost in something worthwhile. My perception was sharpened by solitude, but I lost my identity when I applied this sharpened perception to myself. There was nobody to perform for, no audience. I didn't need to define myself. I lost my relevance." The hermit stated that he lost his motivation and that he had no true need for anything. Not even a name identified him. However, there was a price to living in seclusion. The hermit was never really free from the outside world and civilization. He disclosed that he left contemporary life around 1986. According to one of his neighbors, his family thought he had fled to New York City. There was never a police report filed, and no attempt was made to locate the missing person. The family simply believed he had moved on to pursue his own interests. The hermit was 20 years old at the time and had a menial job installing alarm systems in Boston. He intended to truly become lost in the forest, ensuring he would never be able to return to civilization. The hermit initially traveled south until he reached Florida, but then he made the decision to travel north until he reached Maine. Without notifying anybody, he left everything behind and ventured into the bush on foot. He traversed forests, ridges, mountains, and bogs, not knowing where to go. At last, he located a place that made him feel at home, so he decided to establish a camp there. It was not the hermit's choice to return from exile. He was actually taken into custody for pilfering from a camp intended for adults and children with disabilities. The police went to his campground after taking him into custody and started to take everything apart. What they discovered was stunning. Christopher Knight, 47, was recognized as the hermit. Mug shots of him suggested that he was not the man who had spent 27 years living in the woods. He was scrubbed and clean-shaven, albeit wearing 1980s-style spectacles. Apparently, this man was what the locals had nicknamed the North Pond Hermit, and he had been stealing from their campgrounds and cabins for years. Sergeant Terry Hughes, a state game warden, told CNN that this character, this folklore figure known as the Hermit, who we all knew about as an unknown suspect moving around in society and burglarizing camps, is a fantasy. Knight's felony status was made public, and he may have been responsible for over 1,000 break-ins and burglaries in the Rome region. It seems that he had not been completely alone after all. Even though Knight desired a life apart from humans, civilization was necessary for him to survive. Throughout his 27 years in the outdoors, Knight never attempted to go fishing or hunting. Rather than picking up survival skills, he decided to steal from other people. There was nothing he could not take, whether it was food, cookware, shovels, or literature. The police discovered many video gaming consoles and a battery-operated television inside the camp he constructed, which was shielded by a maze of thickets. He certainly took a lot of contemporary technology for someone who wanted to reject it. As far as Knight is concerned, his criminal career started the moment he set foot in the Rome woodlands. He began robbing houses close to the woods after going without food for about 10 days. His favorite foods to eat were potatoes, corn, and other farm produce. After setting up camp, Knight started looking for nearby cabins and summer camps to rob. He also observed the residences of a few long-term inhabitants and noticed how shoddy the security was. Knight admitted that he believed robbing the local campers and residents' pantries was the simplest method to obtain food. He just wanted to steal the supplies he needed to survive, not their personal belongings. Over the years, Knight became an expert at robbing the locals. He would observe them for a while, picking up on their habits, and then he would strike while they weren't home. Knight also carried a large assortment of lock-picking tools. He normally waited until dusk to attack, crossing the pond near his campground in a stolen canoe, allowing him to enter and leave without being noticed each time because of the darkness. Knight said, "I was very aware that I was doing something wrong. It was not enjoyable for me in the slightest. My blood pressure was up, my pulse was racing, and my adrenaline was surging when I was thieving. I was constantly afraid, always eager for it to end as soon as possible." The game warden in the area claims that Knight was only apprehended because one of the nearby campgrounds had just installed monitoring equipment. This would be the last chance for the North Pond Hermit's crime spree to halt. Michael Finley, an author and biographer, was intrigued by Knight and began to follow the story. Despite Knight's transgressions, Finley felt sympathy for the man and recorded the inquiry. "I have a soft spot for Knight," Finley admitted in a 2017 National Geographic interview, "but it's important to remember that he stole more than just hamburgers and flashlights. People's sense of security and peace of mind are intangible assets that cannot be valued." Christopher Knight was imprisoned for 7 months following his apprehension. He met up with his brother again after being freed and went back into society. He works alongside his brother now and is attempting to get used to a typical life. At least the residents of Maine won't have to worry about break-ins anymore. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. I hope you like this story. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Also subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.